my question for today. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the thought of maintaining a home during retirement? Let me just tell you, first of all, you're not alone in this concern. Today, we're going to challenge the traditional notion that home ownership is the only path to a fulfilling retirement. I'm going to share some real stories of how three of my clients found peace and financial freedom by choosing a much different alternative for their housing options. Stay tuned to discover how 7 practical alternatives that could transform your golden years. Well, let me start by thanking you for joining me today on your journey to master your finances from a Christian perspective. I got to tell you, I truly appreciate your trust and your time. You're making a wise investment in your future, and I guarantee it's going to pay off in dividends. Well, yesterday we talked about the 529 plans and the 2 different types, and I broke them all down for you. And this is critical information for all parents and grandparents who may be interested in doing something with a child's education. So if you missed that show, I'm going to encourage you to go back and check it out. Now, today's listener question comes from Martha, all the way from Tennessee, and she writes this. Dear Ralph, I'm approaching retirement and feeling pressured to keep my large family home, even though maintenance is becoming overwhelming. My children are insisting I keep this huge house because of the memories, but I just don't need this much house. But the thought of downsizing makes me feel like I'm failing somehow. What are your options? Well, Martha, thank you for your question today, and I can feel the emotion and I can sense what you're feeling in this. And I hear you about that pressure you're feeling. I hear that from many clients, and I also understand your fears. The fear of downsizing is a real thing. You've probably been in your home for a long time. And guess what? This is a huge decision. So I'm going to give you some great options today. Now, before I get started, I want to remind you, every Tuesday night, I go live. That's right, live with the Ask Ralph show. You can get to it by going to AskRalphPodcast.com/live. And as a great incentive to join us, I just launched this. Every week, I'm going to be giving away a $100 Amazon gift card to someone who joins the live. So I'm going to encourage you to join us this Tuesday night. Again, that's at AskRalphPodcast.com/live. And maybe you'll be the winner of that $100 Amazon gift card. Well, as you know, Martha, I always like to start with the Word of God. And I found a great verse today that really matches up with your question. And it comes from Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. And this is what it says. It says, I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. And listen, Martha, I thought that was right on point because in the end, it's not about our physical dwelling. It's all about our spiritual peace. So, Martha, today, my goal is to give you some of that spiritual peace. The key is finding peace of mind. Well, today I thought I'd share with you 3 powerful stories to get started. These are from a few clients I've worked with over the past 30 years. I was putting this script together today, and I said, wow, it really has been 30 years. So let's start with story number 1. And this is John and Mary, and I call this one RV Living. Now, John and Mary owned a $450,000 home. Well, that's a great place. The problem was their mortgage was $2,200 a month. Add in property taxes, insurance, and don't forget all that maintenance, and they were spending nearly $3,500 a month on housing. And they told me, they said, Ralph, this is hanging over our head each and every month. And I thought about Proverbs 21:5, and that says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Well, guess what? John and Mary decided that they were going to be diligent, and it led them to purchasing a $120,000 luxury RV. And let me just tell you, he showed me some pictures of this thing, and it was beautiful. And here's the best part of it all. They paid for it with just half of their home's equity. When they sold their home, just half of the equity paid for the RV in full. So guess what? Their monthly expenses dropped to just over $1,000. All I can say is, wow. And what that did was it created some real financial breathing room. It even included in that their RV lot rental. Now, they moved around some. It included their maintenance, their insurance. And I remember when they told me about their decision. I remember John, he's a faithful guy, and he said, Rob, I pondered on Matthew 6:33. And it said this, it says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So what did they find? You might be saying, Ralph, how did that work out for them? Well, here's what they did. They let go of that traditional home ownership, and God truly provided a better path. Now, that's a play on words. If you think about it, it's an RV, a better path. But God did it. Now they travel all over the country. They volunteer on mission projects. And here's the best part. It's what they said to me. they spend extended time with their kids and grandkids. Think about it literally as a housing trade-in. Again, another funny play on words, but give me some roomness today. So that's story number one, and that's what I said, the RV story. Let's look at story number two, and this is what I call Sarah's journey. Now, Sarah was struggling with a 2,200 square foot home. And here's what she said to me. She said, Ralph, I'm spending $15,000 a year on maintenance. Now, the unfortunate part, Sarah was a widow. And she shared with me, she said, Ralph, I'm drowning in cost and I feel completely alone. She told me once, she said, Ralph, I remember that scripture verse about wise stewardship. So what Sarah decided to do is she decided to move into a retirement community. Now, in her case, she paid a $250,000 entrance fee. Now, that may sound like a lot of money, but she was able to pay that completely with the money she got from her home. And the best part of it, she was looking for continuing care and being able to stay in her home. It's what they call a CCRC. And she said to me, she said, Ralph, I love this community. Now, in addition to that entrance fee, she pays $2,800 a month. Now, you might think, wow, that's a high number. But think about it for a second. This fee includes her meals. It includes her utilities. It includes all these activities. And best of all, and this was the most important thing for Sarah, she has guaranteed health care for the rest of her life. I heard somebody say it's kind of like a cruise ship on land. There are all kinds of fun things going on all the time. She's able to be engaged. She told me, she said, Rob, this aligns perfectly with my values, my biblical principles. And she said, look, I'm planning for the future, but I'm trusting God's provision. She also told me this. She said, Ralph, she said, this community gives me not just financial peace, but also a social connection that I had missed since losing my husband. She said to me, she said, Ralph, candidly, it's filled that void and it's removed my isolation. So Sarah, I say, great decision. I'm glad that's working out for you. Now let's look at story number three. And this one is a little bit different. I'm going to tell you up front, this is not for everybody, but Tom and Linda's home sharing story. So Tom and Linda, picture this. They were paying $4,200 a month for their condo. Now, they went to a very active church. They met another Christian couple there who was facing similar challenges. I guess maybe they had lunch together and they came up with this idea. And they told me, both couples said, look, they drew on inspiration from Acts chapter 2, 44 and 45, which speaks about believers sharing everything they had. Again, like I said, this one is not for everybody. But what they decided to do is they decided to move in together and do what we call home sharing. Now, they didn't stay in the condo they were in. What they did was they went and found a larger home, one that had 2 master bedrooms. And the best part was they split that rent. So $3,600 a month rent, but each couple paid only $1,800. And the other great part of this, they were able to share the utilities. And this saves them at least another $200 a month. And they tell me, they say, Ralph, it's not for everybody. We get it. But this has become a beautiful testament to Christian fellowship. And at the same time, Ralph, we're making wise financial decisions. And like I said 3 times now, it's not for everyone, but it's something to consider. Listen, I've had many clients who did something similar. I had 2 widowed sisters who lived together not far from here. They've been clients for years. And the best part of it is you're not only sharing those expenses, but you're supporting each other. Now, I promised you 7 alternative ideas, and here they are. Now, I'm going to break them out for you, and then I'm going to dig into some details because I'm going to share with you some realistic costs so you can make an informed decision. So we already talked about luxury RV living, like my client found out. We already talked about continuing care retirement communities, or CCRCs. Like I said, that client found financial peace of mind there and social interaction. We talked about home sharing. That was at Christian fellowship and good stewardship. But I wanted to add a few more, and that was rental communities for active adults, and then university-based retirement communities. And I got a client who was a teacher, and she chose this idea, and I'll tell you about that in a second. She just loves it. I'm going to talk about tiny home communities, which I think is a really interesting idea. And then last but not least, number 7 on my list, I'm going to talk about international living in lower cost countries. So let's explore these in detail. Let's start with that luxury RV living. Let's be honest. You're going to have an initial investment of between $120,000 and $180,000. Now, you can spend a lot more than that. My wife and I, about 2 years ago, went and looking at these RVs, and you can spend some money on these things. The only issue I had with them is the one particular one we were looking at had all these bump outs, where they crank these things out. But when you're driving down the road, they're all cranked in. It's hard to walk from the front to the back. But anyway, that's just Ralph's opinion. So with those, you're going to have that initial investment. I said anywhere between $120,000, $180,000. Well, like I said, you could spend a lot more than that. But then you're going to have monthly costs. And I put here between $1,000 and $1,500. That might be for lot rent, for maintenance and repairs. for insurance. And I'm going to give you a biblical principle for each one of these. So for this one, I found this from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 7. For we brought nothing into the world and we take nothing out of it. Now, the cool thing about the luxury RV living, it's financial freedom and adventure at the same time. It's what I call practicality and escapism. It's that freedom to explore. And listen, the possibilities are endless. And you can just open up the map and you've got an opening to all kinds of adventures. And like my client found, they're able to go spend time with their kids, with their grandkids, and their RV is right there. Well, let's move on to the second one. That was those continuing care retirement communities, or the CCRCs. And like I said, my client paid $250,000 at the front end, and those can go anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. So they're not cheap. And then you're also going to pay that monthly fee, anywhere I put here between $2,800 and $4,000. Now, the biblical principle here, it's kind of a funny one, but I thought it was apropos. And that's Proverbs 16:31. And it says, gray hair is a crown of splendor. And the thing that a lot of people tell me about these, and I've got many clients that have gone into these, they love the stability, they love the support. They told me they're surrounded by friends. There's a professional chef. Medical care is the key with a lot of these. And listen, you've got to understand how these work. There's different type of entry fees. Some of those fees are refundable, some of them are not. I'm not going to cover the specifics on today's show, but I'm going to encourage you, if you're interested in one of these, go take a look at them and talk with a professional that really understands the ins and outs of those, because you really need to know what you're getting into before you get started. So that was those CCRCs. When I was talking about that unusual one, a lot of people were going, Ralph, you've lost your mind. It's that home sharing. Now this one, to be honest with you, this is a minimal investment, especially if you're renting a place. You're going to have to, pay rent. But one of the things I'm going to bring to your attention here is I think it's really important to get with an attorney, and you might spend between $2,000 and $3,000 for some legal agreements that really lay out what this is going to look like. And then you've got your monthly costs anywhere between $1,800, $2,500. But again, think about the big house that you can rent, and you could share that with somebody. So your costs are really cut in half. So the biblical principle here is Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9, which says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. Well, that is precisely what you're doing when you're home sharing. And listen, it doesn't have to be just for couples. Like I said, I've got some older ladies who are both widows, they're sisters, and they did it together. Sometimes it's just a group of friends. I had somebody say to me the other day, it's like, Ralph, it's my intentional chosen family, and that's better than my normal family. I can relate to that sometimes. But think about it. It's got built-in support. It's great for somebody who might have been living alone before. It provides that companionship. And think about this. You have those great movie nights and some excellent potluck dinners. Well, this is a great time to say, ask yourself, how do you feel? What do you think about these? What do you think of these options will work best for you? I'm going to move on in a second, but I just want to take a break and think about all the different scenarios you can work with. And we're only halfway through. Well, let's move on to the next one. And that's what I call rental communities for active adults. Now, these are monthly costs. These are rents anywhere between $2,000 and $3,500. The beauty of these is you've got no maintenance responsibilities. The benefits are you've got great social activities. A lot of them are in secure communities with locking gates, where you've got a guard at the front. They're very flexible. So the biblical principle here is from Proverbs chapter 14, verse 1. And it says this, the wise woman builds her house. Now, again, that's a little bit of a stretch. But think about it. This is a wise decision. It's a popular choice. I see a lot of these. And one of the things, I was doing some research for the show, and some of the taglines, they call it the playground for grown-ups. I'm 52. I'm looking for a playground. That will be fun, but it's a way to stay active. It's a way to stay engaged. It's a way to stay connected. And the best part, and I'm not a big fan of yard work, but there's no yard work because somebody's handling that. And it's got this vibrant social life with zero maintenance. And the best part of this is, with most of these communities, because you're renting, there's no long-term commitment of ownership. So you decide, you know what? This isn't for us. We tried it out, but it's not just going to work for us. So let's move on to the next one. And this one is what I call university-based retirement communities. And these, again, these are monthly fees. You're going to pay anywhere between $2,500 and $4,000. And like I said, I've got a client. She lived up here in Delaware. She recently relocated to Florida a couple of years ago. Now, she was a teacher her entire life. So she found this opportunity right alongside of a university. And she's like, Ralph, I can't wait to move here. And she is just loving it. She likes it because of these lifelong learning opportunities. There's cultural events, there's concerts, there's plays, there's all kinds of things. And the best part, she has access to some of the state-of-the-art healthcare facilities because it's attached to a major university. So you might be thinking, Ralph, what biblical principle did you find here? I said, this aligns with the stewardship of both our finances and our talents. Think about it. This particular client, she's a talented teacher, and she was able to do this. She sold her home and she made it work. And it's great for those people who always love learning. They're always looking for something new. She tells me all the time, she says, Ralph, I attend lectures, I go to concerts, some great theater things. And think about it like this. She said to me one time, she said, Ralph, it's like going back to college. I was like, that's pretty cool, because I think she's in her late 70s now. And she's thinking, I'm going back to college. I'm going to school. I'm taking classes. I'm doing lectures. It's like I'm back in college again. And she said, Ralph, I'm making some huge social connections. And like I said, the other part is she really likes about it is that affiliation with the healthcare right there where she's living. So that's another great one. Well, now let's move into the next one I have here on my list, and that's what I call tiny home communities. Now, you may have seen some of these online. I know Amazon or Elon Musk just listed one of these tiny homes, but there are actually communities of these growing all over the United States. And up front, you're going to pay between $40,000 and $80,000 because you actually own the unit. Now, most of the time you're renting the land, so I'm going to put on here that there's a monthly cost of between $500 and $800. And the benefits of these is just simplified living. It's a minimalist lifestyle. There's not a whole lot of maintenance. And see, let me give you the biblical principle for this one. Now, this one I think is right on. It's from Proverbs 16:8. It says, better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without right. And see, this is a trendy new thing. People are living with less. They're simplifying their life. They're embracing that minimalist lifestyle. It gives them some financial freedom. And a lot of people say, hey, it's great for the sustainability of the planet because we're having a smaller footprint. They're enjoying life without that huge financial burden of that big house. And the coolest part, when I did some research on this, they've got some really cool things like common spaces. You can share gardens with people. And again, this is one of those places, do your research and understand what you're getting into. But it's really a kind of cool thing. And some of these little mini homes or tiny homes, they call them, they are really cool. It's neat how they can put all these different things into this little space. And it's very functional. I guess for those people living in New York City in some of these efficiency apartments, it's kind of the same idea. Well, last on my list today is international living. And again, this one I'm going to say for cost, it's going to be all over the place because it really depends on where you go. For sake of our discussion today, I said between $1,000 and $2,500. Now, the cool thing about this is you're going to have a huge cultural experience. You're going to go somewhere where maybe you've never been, or at least you never lived there. You might find a place that has a lower cost of living. But here's some things I want to warn you about, some things you might not think about at the front end. You've really got to understand healthcare access. If you're somebody that has some chronic illnesses or that's a concern of yours, pay attention to what's around. There are some foreign places, some international places that have great healthcare, but just be cautious about that. The other thing you need to really understand, and I'm not an expert in this, is what are the visa requirements? Understand how that plays out with you living there. Maybe you're not a citizen of that place. You got to understand those visa requirements. Exactly. And the biblical principle here is this option requires careful stewardship of resources while creating new opportunities. It's the whole point of you're getting to be an adventurer. People have said to me, Ralph, this is the ultimate escape because I'm exploring different cultures. I'm stretching my budget because I have this lower cost of living. Now, I'm going to give you my key takeaways in just a moment, but today I've got a special ask for you. Listen, I'm really trying to grow the show. I'm trying to reach more people with this positive message of hope and growing their finances while building their faith. So I'm going to ask you to do me a huge favor. I would love for you to share this show with others who will benefit from the information I present each day. All you got to do is simply send them an email with a link to AskRalph.com. That's all you got to put in there. Say, hey, I listened to this show. Maybe you watched the show if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, and I'm really getting a lot. Ralph is really connected with me. And just tell everybody you know, send them an email. Say, just go to AskRalph.com and tell them about how it's impacted your financial and your faith life. Because here's the thing. I work with a lot of consultants. I work with a lot of people because this is my mission. I want to see people reach with this positive message. And every one of them tells me the same thing. They say, Ralph, you can advertise till the cows come home. And I got cows right here on the farm. But they said the key is word of mouth. So please do me a favor, share it with your friends and family, and let's grow the show and reach more people. And don't forget, while you're doing that, mention that $100 giveaway every Tuesday night. Maybe they'll come and see our live show, and maybe they'll win that $100 Amazon gift card. Well, now, as I promised, let me share my key takeaways from today's show. As it says in Philippians 4:11 and 12, it says, contentment isn't about the size or ownership status of our home. Like you talked about in your question today. It's not about the size of your home. You got to stop worrying about that. Don't worry about this downsizing thing. The key is finding peace in God's provision for our needs, because that's the truth. So my key takeaway today is we can practice good financial stewardship while maintaining our quality of life. We can do it. And each of the alternatives I presented to you is a way to practice good stewardship while maintaining that quality of life. And see, here's the thing. Being a good steward is larger than financial success. It's not measured by what's in your bank account or how much you've got in your retirement account or how big your house is or how nice your cars are. Those things really don't matter in the end. It's about using our resources wisely for a greater purpose. And listen, I gave you a ton of different ideas because no one size fits all, and it might not fit you for the rest of your life. You might have a season of, let's go try this international living. Well, Ralph, that wasn't for us. Let's try the tiny house. Oh, we're bumping into each other all the time. That's not working for us. Maybe you go to that CCRC or pick one of the other ones. There's just no one size fits all, and you might have different seasons. Even in your retirement, I've had many clients that have moved to another state and like, wow, it just wasn't for us. But you've got to find that thing that aligns with your core values and aligns with your financial goals. Because here's the thing. We're all called to seek first his kingdom. And these alternatives might help you focus on what truly matters and break free of that burden of excessive housing costs. That was the whole purpose of today's show, so I hope you heard that loud and clear. Now, tomorrow I'm going to tackle an important topic about lesser-known facts about Social Security that could impact your retirement planning. A lot of people don't know all the nuances of Social Security. They think they know it, but tomorrow I'm going to share some things that might just surprise you. So again, tune in tomorrow, share it with episode with your friends. Let everybody know that Ralph's going to be talking about Social Security tomorrow. And remember this as I close today. My passion is to help you achieve financial success. That's my goal, my mission field. It's my plan every day while I turn on this microphone, I turn on this camera, because I want to see you live out your dreams and I want to see you grow in your faith, because I know working together, we can master your finances from that Christian perspective. So as I always say, stay financially savvy out there and may God bless you abundantly.
Thank you for joining us on the Ask Ralph podcast. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. And remember, financial issues don't have to be complicated. Just ask Ralph. The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media, Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.